Hi, my name is Alan Bigelow, and I create the stories for webyarns.com. I live in Buffalo, New York, in the United States, and I've been working on interactive fiction for the web since 1999. By interactive fiction, I mean fiction that is, or stories that are created entirely out of Flash, but use elements of video, audio, text, images, and other media. The story itself is uploaded to the web as a Flash file, as a .swf file. And of course, anyone wanting to view that story on the web would need a Flash player on their browser, typically Flash Player 7 or better. I first got interested in creating these interactive stories for the web because, as a longtime fiction writer who worked exclusively on the page, that is, as text and hard copy, I saw in the web the opportunity to create stories that were multifaceted and created an environment for the viewer that went not beyond necessarily, but parallel to the environment created for readers who might be reading traditional text on the page. By parallel, I mean that the experience for a viewer online reading an interactive story might be similar to someone reading a text on the page, but with the added elements of interactivity and multimedia, the experience would be a different one. Whether or not interactive fictions on the web are going to endure as a form into the future is hard to really tell at this point. My guess would be that yes, it would be so. The web is a very big place, and there's plenty of room for all sorts of experimentation. And certainly, when you think about what people read and where they read it, increasingly more and more people are reading material on the web versus in hard copy. And the expectation because of that is that these pieces that they read will be interactive, that they will contain elements that go beyond simply text. I've written a number of pieces since 1999. Many of them are short pieces. The longest work that I've written is a novel called Pamela Small, and the URL for that is pamelasmall.com. This is a story of a young girl, and I'm actually reading a little text here so I can remember exactly what to say. It's a teenage girl wanted by the police for arson, murder, and theft. The novel is an account of her flight from arrest and after she is caught, her defense against the charges. Originally, this novel was a text novel, but I put it aside for a while and then pulled it out after I started getting interested in interactive fiction, and then redid it as an interactive novel. My pieces normally range in reading time from anything from, say, 5 minutes for some of the short stories to, in the case of pamelasmall.com, up to 30, even 40 minutes long. But when you compare that against how long it would typically take to read a novel as a regular text novel, we immediately can recognize that a delivery which gives a reader a novel in around 40 minutes or 30 minutes may have some advantages, certainly for people who are simply surfing the web and have limited time. Here you can see the basic template for pamelasmall.com. In the upper left-hand corner, you'll see the chapter title, and on the right-hand side, you'll see the chapter number with navigation buttons to go back and forth through the pages. There's also an additional navigation link down here that includes not only a tell a friend function and a credits function, but also a map of the novel itself, in this case a geographic map because the novel does have a geographic plot line. If you click on this map, you'll see that it will enlarge, and then there will be chapter links that you can click on to actually skip forward to those chapters if you want. I'm going to quickly take you through just a couple of chapters of the novel just to give you a sense of what it looks like. Here we have the title page, and I'm going to skip through this to the first page of the first chapter, which is called Rollerblades. You'll notice in the back left-hand side we have a sailboat going by and also birds flying. I don't know if you can see it in this video image. But they're there as local color to help flesh out the environment for the reader. Nothing I put into any of these web yarns is extraneous, at least I hope not. It's all there to help support the web yarns thematically and also to help with character development and also to help create setting. So if we go through this first chapter where she's just introducing herself, we'll see the introduction of an animation at this point, while the animation is still going in the background, and then further animation later on in the same chapter. And once again, all the animations help support the text itself and the storyline. Here in chapter 2, which is titled I Am Interrogated, I'm going to turn the volume down just a little bit on this one. We see she's being interrogated by the police, and in this case, because text appears throughout the novel, I try to change the text here and there. So here, for example, I'll have it tween in from the background and also blend in as it moves to the page. And here, the final chapter I wanted to show you is chapter 3. This is called Mother, and this is, once again, I do something different in the background. In this case, it's a motorboat going by. And we have the character of the mother that is being portrayed. And you notice that we have her image in the right foreground. And that image becomes a flash movie to help represent her character. And also at the end of this particular chapter, I introduce a kind of parallel plot line which involves other members of the family and other people involved with Pamela's story. These are interactive movies. For example, here is a still photo image of the father, and if you click on it behind, you'll find a handwritten note from him to Pamela. And I introduce these interactive images periodically throughout the whole novel to supply a parallel plot line which helps support the novel thematically. I wanted to talk a little bit about the hardware that I use for these projects. I use a Macintosh G4 Tower computer. Originally I was using a Macintosh G3 desktop, but with the slower processor it's quite difficult sometimes to have the patience while a file is saving or while you're trying to manipulate a file. So about 5 years ago I upgraded to the G4. The processing power on your computer is important for you to be able to see it how most other people are going to see it. And so obviously if you can afford it, the better the computer you can get, the better off you'll be. One thing you would want to be aware of though is that if you get too high quality a computer and that you might be creating works that you have no trouble seeing on the web, but in fact someone with a lower processor capability will have difficulty with. So as with any web work that you might put on the web, you want to test that work using other people's computers and browsers to make sure that it's compatible. In addition to the G4 computer, I also use, for example, this, which is an M-Audio recorder. And this comes with this is also used with a microphone, which I would use together, like so. And this is a expensive but high quality recorder that produces very nice sound files, voice files, and music files that I can import into Flash. With the complexity of the kind of works that we might be creating online, it's unreasonable to expect any single individual to be able to create all the images, video, audio, and other files from scratch. It'd just be prohibitive. So therefore, I use online, for example, for my sound files, I go to sources like soundrangers.com and sounddogs.com, which are royalty-free sound sites. They do cost a little bit of money, especially SoundDogs, which has raised their prices recently. But for example, with Sound Rangers for $5 you can get a music file which you can then download and edit and manipulate any way you want, and it's royalty-free as long as you, and as you would always when you get something from some other source, is credit that source in your credits page. For sound editing, now I guess I'm getting into applications here. Oh, one last piece of hardware, of course, would be a good digital camera, which are pretty inexpensive and most everyone has them by now. Applications, of course, as you know, everything is done in Flash, but there are supporting applications that I use to manipulate files before they import it into Flash. For example, I would use, of course, Photoshop. For audio, I use Sound Studio, which is a relatively inexpensive program, very user-friendly. Then I would export from Sound Studio using AIF or WAV files into Flash. I hope that some of you will visit webyarns.com and read some of the stories that I published there. As I said, if you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to email me, and I certainly will reply as quickly as possible. Thanks again.